How you doing, Stash, the Polish-American blogger, back. Still excited for the Polish people. The other day, celebrating 123 years of the centennial, excuse me, march, peaceful march, celebrating their freedom. The new media is just sort of saying it was a horrendous, disgusting display of right-wing marching and nationalism and a horror show, and that's all they're saying. And I don't think it's that way in the minds of the Poles. They were celebrating freedom after 123 years of occupation. They were partitioned by three powers, just to be clear: Russia, Prussia, and Germany, Austria, and Hungary. Okay, so from 1795 to 1918, they weren't free. Okay, they were free for only 2 years, and then they got attacked from the east by the Bolsheviks, the Soviet communist. And in 1920, they won that fight. Okay, that's very unknown. There's a book by Norm Davis called Red Star, White Eagle I would recommend about that war. Actually partaking on that war was an American guy, a pilot by the name of Marion Cooper, who was so inspired by the valor of the Polish people and the stories, fighting outnumbered and everything, that he took his pilot skills into Poland to fight the Bolsheviks. He was the stunt pilot for the movie, the original King Kong, way back, Marion Cooper, and then they formed a squadron which went on to be the best in World War II, the Kościuszko Squadron, named after Thaddeus Kościuszko, who fought alongside the rebels here in the United States. But he wasn't able to free his homeland here. I think he was coming to fight alongside General Washington here in a gamble that, the new ideas of freedom that came to the States would kind of spread over there. The Poles had also an interest in Athenian style democracy, and he came over here, and I think he was hoping that the Americans would help him out back then, or he gambled to whatever. But so that's being ganged up upon by three powers, and dealing with that is really something. That's why colors, the red and white colors of Poland, were shining throughout the world that day. That was pretty good. And in Royal Albert Hall, they did it. I think the tallest building in the world gave him a shout out, because certain people understand, the value of what they were going through. But the press is just talking about this stuff, and I think there's guys on the internet like Stefan Molyneux. He's an interesting guy, whatever. But Jack Persaic or whatever, that actually I think they went over there to just show there wasn't of anything of real consequence. Of course, there was I think they pronounce it Antifa, or the Antifa fighting with the, nationalistic people, whatever. But I mean, that happens. That's been happening over here in the States, and I think just talking about that stuff takes away from the real pride of the historic event. They're like, well, it's being marred. Well, that's because the media focused on it. I don't think it's a huge thing. I think they're implying that they're just crazy because they're nationalist. there's code words now for things you can't say, and apparently now you can't be a nationalist. Well, then what are you? What are you, an internationalist? I mean, where will you draw the line? And Poland's not an international country. It's a sovereign nation, and I think that the world media has they are the ones who took away from the pride of that event. I don't even think the mayor of that city wanted to march. I don't think she's from Poland. I think it's a German woman or something. There's the EU, and there's not a lot of national pride being presented by other countries. Like Macron says, well, nationalism is disgusting. It's not patriotic to be nationalist. That makes no sense to me. It's not patriotic to be nationalist. Who would you be patriotic for? An international force? The EU? And now Merkel. Trump is pretty popular, and he's going after her. Putin is pretty popular. He's going after her. And Poland's got to watch out. They're kind of like in the middle. It's their situation. I've done some blogging here with some harsh criticism of, say, Poland jumping in on a missile defense system. What am I going to say? It's a United States citizen, Polish American. What is it? I'm questioning my country. Yeah, I am. NATO and that type of thing. This is not necessarily patriotic or nationalistic for the United States. That organization, being involved in that. They had a deal with Russia that they wouldn't expand. Now they're at their border. They were involved. The Libyans had agreed to give up their WMD, and Hillary Clinton. We saw he died. So I'm not cheering on everything about Muammar Gaddafi, but he gave up his weapons of mass destruction, and they wasted him. So, and once upon a time, this country was allied with Saddam Hussein, and was using him as a good friend in that region, and look what happened to him. And what has it good done the United States? I don't know. They still continue war on terror. It's just spent $6 trillion. So, while I have some freedom of speech, am I saying anti-American things by disagreeing with these organizations like NATO and stuff? No way. I feel my job as a citizen is to protect, my fellow countrymen, my country. And if I say that getting in these entanglements that Washington warned against, then so be it. And the same thing for Poland. Now, they're in a tougher position now, always, because they're between powers. They're between Europe, Germany, and Russia. And I respect the Poles for surviving the triumvirate against them, 123 years of freedom. I mean, I respectfully say also, getting involved with missile defense systems and, paying for bases for NATO and the United States troops there. I don't know how wise it is to have troops come on your soil, There were alliances prior to the big war, and promises weren't kept, So if you talk to somebody from Poland, they're going to say, well, we were portrayed at Yalta, in the past. Now, maybe I think younger people in Poland, no, they're excited. I think they're excited about all things American, and they're buying the whole baby, lock, stock, and barrel. So, well, they'd say, well, you don't know, you're not really Polish, you're not here. Yeah, okay, so it's their choice, I guess. But, um, as happy as I am about this celebration myself, and as discouraged I am about the Poles being hit with this evil nationalist right wing crap, which I don't know how many people are really into that over there. I don't think it's overwhelming. And you are going to get people who are into that kind of thing, who admire them for sticking up for their sovereignty now, and that's just life. That's just like most people who are successful in Wall Street and working in sophisticated IT work and tech and big tech, big pharma. Well, they're all going to be open borders people, open society, George Soros mentality. You're not going to see that from you're not going to nationalism is some, and protectionism and things that are dirty words are for the benefit of regular people, of the deplorables. And that's just how it goes. Trump, Poland is often politically aligned against what the elites in places like the U.S. and Germany, it sounds like it's the building to another problem in God's playground. I think Davis also, he has another book, God's Playground. They call Poland God's Playground because they're in between the major powers. So if you're Polish, let me know. Are you totally insulted? I said you don't want a missile defense system there. I don't know if they had any say in that anyway. Okay, I don't the NATO's like, we're coming in, and that's it. It's too close to Russia to make any difference. The time a reactive is a mistake, they say now, is worse and worse. They used to have like something like 8 minutes, and now they're down to way lower than that. Well, that's not much time in case something goes wrong. And am I un-American to say that they won't live up to this idea that they're going to protect Poland? Yeah, well, it didn't happen. It didn't happen in World War II, so you got to remember that. And you're dealing with a powerful country next door in which the media of the United States is constantly accusing them of election meddling and owning Trump or their buddies or they're this, they're that. And so you're taking sides, and I don't recommend it. I think Poland should probably be, if possible, give up your friendship or or working with the states more difficult. Make it more difficult, kind of like India. India, they give me the highest bidder, for the job. But the culture of the United States is appealing, and it's still new to Poland. They're pretty. They've only the wall has come down, so to speak, I think in '89 or something. So it's new. Sorry if I'm getting into a thing and too political to this thing. The focus was the freedom, celebrating the freedom, but those are real issues. The and how free are they in Poland? I don't know. I don't think they're allowed to question this. What happened in Smolensk? Was there anything malevolent behind that? Did the Russians really do it? Do you want to go to war with Russia? Did they shoot down the president's plane? Who really? What happened to the plane? Was it pilot error, like the Russians say, or is there something more to it? I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it to the Russians to get into it with Poland that way. I don't know. I mean, what do they need? More land or whatever. However, they turned over the wrong bodies or something in the plane, and it goes back and forth. Russia and Poland. Russia attacked Poland, World War II. So why should the Poles trust them? And back and forth. I always say the Slavs did most of the fighting in World War II. The big battles. The Poles were actually under the Russians, and the Russians lost the most guys. And per capita, the Poles are up there, maybe number one per capita. So they have a tragic history, but they won. Pilsudski won that one. The Russians should remember that. The Soviets remember that. That's why they ended up having the Kachian Forest thing. I'll talk about that more in detail. I mean, there's obviously the Zbigniew Brzezinski, the man who's deemed the enemy of the world. That 9/11 conspiracy people think he was in on it because he said there's got to be a new Pearl Harbor. He meant this because America's so multicultural. You'd have to have a disaster to get together for a war. I think he was a fan of American imperial ambitions and the problems that are going on now. He was talking about that basically he called it percolating events or something. Basically, poorer countries coming from the south would be, wanting to migrate to Europe, and that would be the next wars would be, shifts in population and big problems. I don't know what his motivation was, but he got in on with there was Charlie Wilson and the CIA, and they funded the Mujahideen, and he's supposed to be, he was supposed to be one of the prime movers in that. I don't know what motivation he had for such Russian hatred, except for the fact that it could have been in his mind a payback for the Kachian Forest. My message with this is, I'm not in favor either way of that kind of thing, of course, but it's like you make war on another country, you threaten them, they will probably eventually get you back, and the U.S. population is more or less shielded from all this stuff, and except for the people who are endlessly deployed by the U.S. military. Maybe they'd want to be stationed in Poland and have some pivos. I'm really rambling, but my point is, it seems to me, and let me know if you're from Poland and you speak English and you're hearing this blog, you say you're wrong. We're happy to have the bases there. It's going to be great, and it's not as intrusive. And you'd say, whoa, if you're from Poland, you'd say, well, you don't know, you're over here, you're crazy, we're next door to Russia, we got to do something. I mean, it's just questionable whether it's worth the price, of being involved. There's a difference between defense and sovereignty and buying into NATO. But I wasn't there. I wasn't in a country that's was partitioned for so long, went through the war, went through the Cold War. So my observations may be incorrect. But the response of the Russians was to unveil that they had weaponry that could blow by them anyway, and that's what he's saying. So I think they're so close that even if they didn't have sophisticated weapons, it's just too close, and he's getting involved, and you get tied to the America, you buy the culture, lock, stock, and barrel, which usually means in the West now, literally, non-reproduction, no babies, The birth rate now in Poland, I think, is pretty low, and it's as low as Italy or in that area. And how much of that is a consequence with being in contact with the Western culture, the European culture, the Euro culture, and the American culture, the Hollywood culture. And maybe that is part of the motivation for people to march hard in Poland, and I'm proud of that. And I think the valor of the Polish people is underestimated. I think the valor and contribution of Polish Americans has been underestimated, which I'll continue to talk about that. Colonel Matt Irvine may have been more decorated than Audie Murphy. Okay? And he's unknown. And Gabby Gobretsky, Francis Gobretsky, was the highest scoring ace in the European theater in World War II, and he's pretty much unknown. So I'm going to keep talking about this stuff, and I went into some really controversial stuff tonight, talking about culture, what points do the Russians have in this, in their situation, and is it possible to retain your sovereignty when you're letting bases with foreign countries station in your land willingly? Let me know in the liner notes. I'll give some of the information and talking points I was talking about. And I'm Stash, the Polish American blogger. Hope you're liking some of my stuff. Sorry I was a little rambly tonight. I think these things got to be talked about. I feel like I'm every time I meet somebody from Poland or Polish American people, they're just simply not talking about this kind of thing at all. Especially younger Polish people that come to the States, they're just all about networking and understand they got to get to it. They got to get jobs, and that's very important. But something to live for and an identity, a history is important too. And same thing for over there. The times I've been over there, it's they're very excited now, and that's the newness. They're kind of going up, and a lot of people are saying that the America is in a decline phase. That it could be. And countries and civilizations have these cycles of and the Poles gotta think about that too. Are you hitching your wagon to something that's going down? And Russia, like Poland, came out from under communism and is returning more to their orthodoxy, Christian orthodoxy, which is unfortunately at odds with the Roman Catholics of Poland in some ways. That's another good topic I'd like to blog about. I'd like to rant about. This is new for them, this newfound sovereignty. So maybe they're ascending in some ways. And Western culture getting perhaps overly sophisticated. Is it working? The birth rates, if you use that as a yardstick, no, it's not exactly. It's the decadence, the careerism, the the very popular, digestible, crappy culture, worldwide culture, has effects. We love it, but it's mind-numbing. It's mind-numbing, to say the least. All right, well, I went way the heck off topic again. The Poles should be proud, and Polish American people should be proud of them over there. And I'm happy to see that some people are seeing the parades from Sunday, and I hope, despite any comments I might have made, that you just focus on the positive things. As a matter of fact, I think just one more point, the BBC had a report, and they were they were saying, oh my God, the horror of this right wing nationalistic evil. But however, they were saying that the events were peaceful, and there was no report of any real problems. So there's just going to be endless stories. They're going to flash pictures of the flares, of the red flares that the people have, and the flags, and go, oh my God, this nationalism, they're all scumbags. Basically, that's how it translates out to my impression that the media is given, and I think, there's a book by an ambassador, I Saw Poland Betrayed, Arthur Bliss. Okay, that's all. That stuff is reality. The cold, harsh reality of war. The Yalta, they were cut out. Polish troops not allowed to march on Victory Day. It's a dark relationship. I think our ancestors came here. Polish Americans love this country, but obviously they don't appreciate the jokes and all that. Okay, and that not marching in the parade, the lack of recognition of Polish contribution in World War II, non-existent credit for Polish Americans as well. There's some serious heroes that really haven't even gotten their own postage stamp and things like that. So anyway, hope this wasn't too negative, but it's things to keep in mind. If you're Polish American and Polish or whatever, give me your opinions about this missile defense system. Do some research on it. I think it's a bad idea. Do you think I'm crazy that foreign troops shouldn't come to within Poland on their soil? Are they guaranteed safety? Did I just say the most un-American insult there would ever be? I don't know. Ask other countries what they think of bases being there. Some love it, and some want them out. Also, what has this contributed to the possible decline of the United States now? $6 trillion in the war on terror, and that's not even anywhere near the budget. And with stories of $800 hammers and problems with the F-35 aircraft and the huge budget, there's problems. I think Trump wanted to originally have good dialogue and relations with Putin, and they're just hitting him with you rigged the election with him, and he was talking some peace. He talked about that invading Iraq was stupid and things like that, and he hasn't. The media's shut him down. The media's shutting him down. What do you think, deplorables? What do you think, Polska, Polish people? This stuff needs to be talked about. All right, let me know. This has been Stash, the Polish American blogger. Peace, and God bless everybody.